pretty hard to help me get everything together and doing all the background things and the administrative things, so that's all great. And I didn't really know I was going to do this until about fall, and someone said, you're up in January. I said, oh, I am? I knew I was going to do it at some point, but wasn't sure. So what I have here is a collection of paintings that are just from the northeast region of, I said America, because I was initially going to put some things in from the Cape Cod region, but that sort of didn't fit into the motif and I backed off. But what you'll notice about the work you see here is it's not political, it's not about any social unrest, it's not about any movement of anything. It's really more about nature and what we sort of have around us every day. Many of us don't even really appreciate it. But I've been painting landscapes since I was in high school, and that was one of the main topics that always related to me, because I spent a lot of time in the summer on my granddad's farm down in Durrell in Bradford County. And we would hike around, and we spent a lot of time on the water in both the Susquehanna River and the Chemung River, fishing and just getting out into nature. And as I went to art school and I started focusing on what I wanted to do for a career, I always was still enamored, by the paintings that were in the museums of these great landscape painters, and it never went away. And I have a certain affinity for barns, because to me they're like people. They're very distinctly different. I mean, they're it's a structure, but each one has its own history and its own nature about it. So that thing appears quite often in a lot of my work. There's several of them here, but I've actually had friends who had said, well, why do you paint those? And I go, I don't know, because maybe because they're vanishing from our environment, like when they fall down or burn down or get torn down, and when they rebuild them, they're not going to rebuild them the way they were in their original state. So I was always thinking to myself, if I paint a lot of these barns and I can capture as many as possible, one day they will come back into style, and it'll kind of be like a covered bridge. People travel hundreds of miles just to see a covered bridge. And if they're going through Vermont and Connecticut and New York, they would like to just seek these out, and they're charming. And I really think that's the thing about it. So most of the work I do, it's meant to really just make you feel relaxed and make you feel like, you could just be there all day and really enjoy it. And that's one of the things that I like about landscape. It's very flexible, and it doesn't take very long to find something charming to paint, any subject. I can be driving around, and as I'm going down these dirt roads and back roads, every twist and turn reveals something even more beautiful than the last one. So the thing is, when you decide to paint, at some point you have to stop your vehicle and get out, because if you don't, you're down in Wilkes-Barre and you haven't done a thing except look. And I learned that from Scott Calder. He goes, you just got to stop and get on to something. So for many years, I worked as a designer. That was my professional life, was graphic design, because I had a design degree from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And then I also had a fine art degree from Edinboro University of Pennsylvania. But I wanted the sure thing, so I decided to go with the design field, so I would have a good job with benefits and a dental plan and stock options. And I wanted to make a living. And I did that for close to 30 years. And during that time, I was still tinkering around painting in my studio, but not as much as I wanted to. About 10 years ago, I retired early, and I said, now I can do what I want to do every day, any day, and go where I want. And I don't really have to worry too much about how I'm going to pay the rent, because my house is paid for. So that worked out real well. So I have some talent that I never let go of, and I have interest in subjects that keep me always charmed. And so for me, it's a little bit like a love affair that doesn't go wrong. It doesn't talk back. And if I ignore it for a week or so, it doesn't say I don't want you around anymore. I can leave it for 3 months and come back And it might not treat me so well because I'm a little rusty, but I can always pick it up and work my way back through it again. So that works for me real well. Well, what happened is about 10 years ago, I got introduced to this movement. It was called the Plein Air Movement, and it's sort of what the French were doing during the Impressionist phase when they moved out of the studio and were able to take paint and put it in a tube and go out into the field and actually paint from life. And that was the entire group of Monet, Cézanne, Pissarro, Van Gogh, Renoir. That whole group just left the inside and went outdoors and started working from life. Now, the more you work from life, the better painter you get to be, because you're seeing things much clearer, and you're really looking at the colors, and you're looking at the middle values and things. But it's also tricky because nature doesn't sit still. 1 minute it's sunny, and half an hour later there's clouds, and then there might be rain. So there's all these little factors that you have to deal with in the environment. This is like, it wouldn't be a problem if you were in Arizona, because out there you get or if you're in Sacramento, you get 180 days of the same weather every day. And you go, well, I can paint. But here, as you know, we don't see the sun a lot, and it's rainy and it's cold, and we have all these seasons, but that's cool, it doesn't matter. But what I started doing is I got introduced to the Plein Air Movement, which has competitions where you can go around various states and geographical areas and you submit work, and when you get accepted, you're part of the crew of people that are moving into town for that week, and you paint all week long, and at the end of the week there's a big show and sale, there's collectors, there's awards, and if you win first prize in some of these, you get published on the magazine. Is the magazine here? Dan, do you still have that?
The magazine is behind Meg.
Okay.
I'll get it.
Okay, so this particular magazine is published by Eric Rhodes. He also publishes Fine Art Connoisseur and a couple others. You'll find these in any of the major bookstores, but it's filled with ads of events and artists who are working plein air. And what they're doing is they're not working from photography, they're working right from life. And then there's very interesting articles in here. This gal is a friend of mine, this is Allison. But over the past couple of years, I've been thinking, I really need to be in this magazine. I gotta be in this magazine. And then, you're always asking yourself, are you good enough to be in that magazine? And I'm going, hell yeah, I'm good enough to be in that magazine. So I've been published twice, and I'm about to do my third. And the painting that's gonna be in the magazine is right behind Dan. It's called Snowed In. And that was a plein air painting I did in about 2.5 hours on location coming back from Syracuse. It's on a back road in Whitney Point. From where I'm at, if I looked over that rooftop and those things, that would be the reservoir that you'd see. So my girl, Mary Green, my sales rep, she says, you sent me 5 images. She goes, I think the snowed in painting is perfect. So that will be in the magazine. Now, they don't just do that for you. You have to pull in some money to have these things published. A 1/4-page ad is $550. So you really got to think hard and long about that. What is it going to do for you? Well, this gets seen by, several 100,000 people subscribe to this. So as they're mulling through there, they're going to go, oh, Richard Henry, I've never seen his work before. And then, hopefully the phone starts ringing. And the first time I did it, I had a painting of watercolor of this lavender farm. It was about 4.5 inches high by 12 inches wide, and I published it, and I had a phone call within 2 days. And it was a woman from Alexandria, Virginia. She says, Mr. Henry, my husband and I have been looking through the catalog, our new edition. She goes, and we're just blown, we love it. And how big? And it had the dimensions. She goes, how much? And I said, it's $230. She says, is it framed? I go, no, it's not framed, but it's shrink wrapped. And she goes, will you take a check, or will you need a credit card? I said, we'll just, we did it. She sent the money, I sent the painting. And then I was like, bingo, that's great. So then I figured, well, that was easy. Now I need to start publishing something that's a little more expensive because I wanted to cover my costs.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they would buy that. That's 18, okay? So, but the point is that doing this type of work and meeting all of these extraordinary artists firsthand and making all these new friendships has been just an amazing deal for me. And I'm meeting people from all around the country. A gentleman from Ireland was at Saranac Lake last year, and he needed someone to ride with because he didn't have a car. But he was in town for the week, and the director says, Richard, would you mind taking, Angus out with you for a couple of days if it's not a problem? I said, no issue. And I just came back from Ireland, so that was perfect timing. So I guess the whole point of this is that whenever you get a chance to show your work, you need to sort of come up with some sort of theme. And I do paint more than oil. I paint lots of watercolors, and I teach watercolor classes at the library in Endicott and Johnson City, as well as SUNY Broome. There are adult ed classes, so there's no credits, college credits, but you can learn the technique. And I think the whole thing is that as far as like inspiration and things that I get, all of that came from a certain style of painting that I like. And when I was really young, I was totally into super realism. But as I matured a little, I got more into impressionism and never was able to embrace abstract stuff that well because I just don't understand it. And I always giggle when I see something that's completely whacked out and it says Untitled. And I go, well, no wonder. And then sometimes I'll see something in a magazine by a famous artist, and when I look at it, it just happened to me last week. I looked at it and it said something about white swan, and there was no reference of any kind of bird in it at all, ever, anywhere. I looked at it different directions, and I thought, okay, so if I'm in a class and I showed them that, I'd say, anyone who can name this painting, or any word associated with it that's correct, I will give you $100. And the guy's name was Bumpkin or something like that. But to look at the painting, I had no clue. And I just said, where is the white swan? I mean, it really isn't there. It's just so, I don't know if they just make it up or what. But that's another funny thing. When you paint a lot, you have to come up with titles for these things. And sometimes it's a location, so that's simple. But sometimes it's not. So you've got to look at this. This is up in Deposit, just a collage of just barns and buildings that struck me. But I didn't know what else to call it. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll leaf through here. I'll find something that has a title on it that could be that one. And I go, hey, I might want to swipe that. So I'll just take it and maybe change a word. But overall, I like to try to give it some sense of, of a title. Like I said, if it's a place, like the horse barn up here, that's right above Brook. That I